Good morning, everyone. My name is Amber, and as Nate said, I was BCubed not very long ago. I did my quantity surveying degree. I started in 2020, so we were the COVID babies, as they say, which taught us a lesson about digital that we weren't expecting to learn, but nonetheless. I then did 4 years of varsity, so I'll let you do the math there. But it's basically my third year in industry now. And I was thinking about what I wanted to speak about when I was asked to speak at the conference, and what value I wanted to share. And the thing that I kept coming back to was, what did I need to know about them when I was in your seats? And now that it's come to the day, I don't think that my talk is really about them necessarily. It's about becoming the kind of professional who can thrive in the teams of today and redefine the way that those of the futures work. It's a message that students desperately need to hear, because university, unfortunately, unintentionally teaches the opposite. Industry isn't quite as clear-cut. Industry can be messy. Every client is different, every company, every project, every team, and every way that the new is used is different. Learning the foundations of having a qualification is important, but the degree proves you can learn. It doesn't prove that you've finished learning. I'd like to start with a confession. When I graduated, I thought the goal was to know enough. To know enough about quantity surveying, about contracts, about construction, and even about building. But the truth is, nobody graduates ready, and I think we have said that this morning, is that your degree is the first step, it's the foundation. And that's exactly how it's supposed to be. A degree doesn't produce a finished professional. It's not supposed to, in fact. A degree gets you invited into the room. It doesn't teach you how every room works. The moment you step into industry, the questions will change. Varsity will ask, can you solve this problem in a very controlled environment? But industry, unfortunately, asks if you can solve a problem that nobody has quite solved in this way exactly before. So there's a little bit more nuance. To follow the confession, I'd like to talk about the myth. And I think this is a myth held by a lot of graduates across, not even just AEC, across all degrees, really. And I think that a lot of students think that they'll graduate, they'll learn the way things are done, the software, the workflow, and do that for the next 40 years. But unfortunately, it doesn't quite work like that. Every client is different. Every company has a different culture. Every team has different personalities, and every project has different constraints, different budgets, technology, and expectations. Even different definitions of what good BIM looks like. People often ask, how do I fit into a BIM organization? But in my opinion, that's the wrong question, because there isn't one kind of BIM organization. There are organizations at different levels of maturity, different workflows, different standards, and also different priorities. The better question is, how do I become someone who can fit in or contribute wherever I go, regardless of how good the organization is at them? I like to think of every project as its own person. It's got its own DNA in a sense. It's got its own personality, its own people, its own combination of technology strengths and weaknesses. And no two projects evolve the same way. And that's what makes industry so exciting, in my opinion, and it keeps me coming back. The mistakes a lot of graduates make, and that I made myself, is that we try to apply the same approach everywhere. One size does not fit all construction, unfortunately. Great professionals don't arrive with all the answers. They arrive curious enough to understand the organism before trying to change it. They observe, they listen, they ask questions, and they learn how the particular team works. Then they contribute. Because adaptability isn't changing who you are, it's knowing what your environment needs from you. Now, we are at a BIM conference, so I would feel a bit wrong to not talk about BIM just a little bit. So let's talk about them. People often reduce them to software, and now the next AI tool even. But software is only a part of the picture, and it's not entirely the point. Software is going to change, workflows will change, standards, technology, all of it's going to change. But the people who thrive are the ones who learn how to change with them. Because BIM isn't just about creating better models, as we've spoken about this morning. It's about enabling better conversations and better decisions. It's about architects, engineers, quantity surveyors, contractors, clients, operators, all making decisions from the same information. Technology is what enables that, but the people and process make it happen. Now, one model has many perspectives. As a quantity surveyor, I often get asked, where do the QSs fit into BIM? Right? We're not exactly designers, we don't model anything. We work with the model, but we're not as recognized, if I could use that in a sense, as the engineers and the architects are when it comes to the physical model production. I want to talk a little bit more about the information today as well. And I actually think that asking where does anyone fit into BIM is also not necessarily the right question. Each discipline asks their own set of questions. Architects, for example, ask if we can build things beautifully. Engineers ask if they can make it work. Contractors want to know whether they can build it safely or not. And QSs, we look at the value. BIM becomes the language that allows all of those conversations to happen around the same information with a single source of truth. Not everyone models, but everyone contributes. And that's why BIM isn't owned by one discipline. So, if software isn't necessarily your greatest asset, what is? I would leave you with a toolkit for today. It wouldn't necessarily be a technical one. It would be this: to be curious. The people who ask the best questions often make the biggest impact. Not because they know less, but because they want to understand more. Be adaptable. Your career won't be one workflow, or one employer, or one software platform. The ability to learn is more valuable than the ability to memorize. Collaborate generously. Some of your best ideas won't be your own. They'll come from listening to someone in another discipline. Be comfortable not knowing, but be willing to learn. Stop trying to become the person with all the answers. Become the person who knows how to learn the fastest. And then lastly, be resilient. If you fail fast, but fail forward. Your first project won't define you, and neither will your 10. Every project will leave you better equipped for the next one. Up until now, I've talked a lot about what kind of professional thrives. And I'm sure you're sitting here thinking, you know, I get it, so I need to be curious, I need to be adaptable. But what do I actually do on Monday? I'd suggest 4 things to start off with. Obviously, the students sitting in this room can range between first year and even masters. Yeah, big range of attendees today. And I do think that this applies across the board, but specifically to the students still at varsity. First, second, third years, even honours. The first one is to learn the language, right? Before you can improve in industry, you have to understand the conversation. You have to be able to talk the language to identify the gaps and to be able to contribute. The biggest barriers for graduates isn't necessarily intelligence, it's vocabulary. I remember I walked into a meeting once, and I think I'd heard more acronyms in the first 3 sentences than I had in the last 3 months, which left me quite intimidated, to be honest, because I didn't know what all of them stood for, what they meant. Things like LOD, you mentioned earlier, LOI, the ISO 19650, IFC, which is not issued for construction, by the way, there's a CDE, classification systems, open BIM, asset information, employer information. The list goes on, quite literally. don't let it intimidate you. You don't need to know everything from the start. You just need to know that you're learning, basically. And if you don't understand the language that the people are speaking and what they're trying to say, it's difficult to contribute to that conversation, never mind change it. The other thing is that every profession has also got its own language, which makes it a little bit more complicated. Architects have a certain lingo, engineers another, quantity surveyors, we've got our own set of jargons. Contractors, project managers, facility managers. Again, we are very widespread industry. We've got a lot of professionals and a lot of careers that touch base with construction. And it's important to learn their language too. And the whole idea with them is to collaborate across disciplines and to remove silos from the way that we work. And you can't do that if you can't understand each other. So learning the language for me is a huge thing. I'm still learning the language. Yeah, basically the best collaborators are the people who can translate between the disciplines. That's a new sort of requirement that's come with them, is you almost need to be able to look across the different disciplines. Today also, thanks to the internet, it's a lot easier to learn these languages and to do your research and to put a little bit of time into learning. You don't necessarily have to wait for university to teach you either. You can start learning the industry terminology, read standards, not necessarily cover to cover, but just start becoming familiar with them. Watch conference talks, so brownie points for being here today already. And read case studies. There's a lot of information online. There's a lot of learning platforms where vendors, employers want younger people to learn and are giving the resources. It's just that you've got to be curious enough to go and find them. And that's where it kind of reinforces that point. You've just got to be curious enough to keep showing up and to keep trying. Then the other thing, and I think we've also mentioned this morning, is that BIM is not just about models and 3D and renders and pictures, right? BIM is actually more so focused on information. And it's something that I wish I'd understood a little bit earlier. Model is just one way that we use to communicate that information. The real question that we should be asking, again, is how do we get the right info to the right people at the right time so that they can make the right decisions? That's what BIM is actually trying to solve. When we have better information, we coordinate better, we detect clashes earlier, we reduce uncertainty, we make decisions sooner, which means less rework, less waste, better budgets, better programs, and better outcomes. And something that I personally am very passionate about, and I think that we often forget, is that it actually leads to a more sustainable way of working, practicing, and design and building. Sustainability isn't just about solar panels. Sometimes sustainability looks like not having to demolish something that was built incorrectly. So if you can get these models and these workflows right earlier, you don't have to keep fixing mistakes that could have been avoided. And my point here, sorry, I just missed this note. I almost want to pose information as a resource, which it is, but in the sense of coal and gas and water as a physical resource. The Brundtland report defines sustainability as a way of using things now that allows for future use of those things, basically. And if we can look at information with that in mind, our project information will outlive us and the people that take it from us. And I know we had the example earlier from Surveyor where this kind of concept becomes very important. So, not every consultant models, but everyone contributes. And then the third sort of takeaway or bit of advice that I would leave you with is don't wait to be given permission. As a quantity surveyor, I don't build a model, but that doesn't mean I wait until it's finished. One of the best opportunities for our profession is to become involved earlier. Cost isn't something you check once the design is complete. Cost should help shape decisions from the beginning. Because when cost information sits alongside the design information, the client is able to make better decisions. The design team is able to make better decisions. And projects become more predictable. That's also why I think that the current state of the quantity surveying profession, we actually, as a QS, we're set up in a quite a nice way, I would say. I don't think that the future of quantity surveying is just measuring drawings and managing contracts. I think that there's an opportunity for us to also start measuring the information. So, in the sense that your BIM managers and things like that are able to manage the delivery. I think that QS is because of the way that we work and the type of job that we do, we're almost set up to work in those types of roles. And I know we spoke earlier about a job versus a career and a degree versus also sort of career. Just because you've studied engineering doesn't mean you're going to be an engineer for the rest of your life. You could be a BIM manager, a BC manager, etc., etc. And then the fourth tip is you need to actually help build these better systems. I mentioned earlier that you need to understand how the organism works, how the project works, how the team works, how the system works. But then also, it doesn't just stop there. You've also got a responsibility to improve it. I think our generation actually has a responsibility, to be honest, not just to use the existing ones, but to improve them. As quantity surveyors, again, I like to bring it back to the QSs. One of the challenges that I think we face is standardization, and I think it's a big challenge in general. We measure differently. There's different methods, there's different rules, there's different structures. But the other problem is that we don't model with those measurement rules in mind. In my head, in the next 5 or 10 years, hopefully, if we've got enough QSs in this room that are willing to help, the models will align with the measurement standards. The design will change, the design changes will automatically update quantities, and your costings can become faster, more reliable and more connected, which leaves you more time to tackle the big decisions and the problems that actually need a little bit more energy and effort behind. That's not just better technology, it's actually better collaboration, because architects shouldn't have to guess what information the QS needs, and the QSs shouldn't only become involved once the drawings are complete. That's unfortunately where the bottlenecks come from, and some of them, at least, are avoidable. The future belongs to the professionals who stop working beside each other, again the silos, and start designing information together. So, before I leave you, I have a challenge. Don't prepare for your first job. Prepare for your 50th. Because by then the software will have changed, the standards will have changed, the technology will have changed, AI most definitely would have changed, and the way we deliver projects most certainly would have changed. But curiosity will still matter. Humility will still matter. Collaboration will still matter, and adaptability will still matter. Your degree will open the first door, but your mindset will determine how many more doors open after that. Don't graduate thinking your job is simply to use the tools you've been given. Graduate determined to improve the way the industry works. Learn the language, understand the information, challenge the inefficient systems, and collaborate generously. Don't focus on becoming the person who knows the most. Become the person who learns the fastest. Become the person who makes every team that they work in better. Become the person who sees a change as an invitation instead of an obstacle. Because the future of the built environment won't be shaped by software alone. It will be shaped by the people who are brave enough to look beyond the model and build something more important than that. Thank you.